Зараз буде ще 2 доповіді, після яких буде робити. І першою з цих доповідей буде доповідати президент комітету. Він розкаже про improving sales services to US clients by addressing key gaps. Це буде наприклад. І наступна доповідь після цього буде від Володимира Деменка, який розкаже про синергію під час війни. Отже, будь ласка, запрошуємо.
Thank you. It's nice to be involved, and I'm grateful for the organizers of the conference. Thank you so much, guys. How many of you would rather have me speaking in Russian or in English? Show me, like, who is for English versus Russian? Okay, perfect. Because я можу трошки говорити по-українськи, але я вже все почав забути, тому що давно вже не говорив. Okay, so what we actually will talk about, I will use one example of how to sell, how to market solutions for the financial institutions in the United States, right? And I will talk with a couple of other things, how actually what is happening in the financial services, and what things you can do to stand out, and services that we actually provide. And my 2 colleagues, Anna and Tatiana, are here, so please stand by after that to exchange business cards. So let's go. So first of all, I'll talk to you a little bit about the financial services. And guys, I really know US banks. I worked for US banks for 15 years. I spent 15 years of my professional life on the Wall Street, right? So I worked for JP Morgan, Citibank, and I worked for AllianceBernstein. So I know these people, what they eat, how they eat, and what they have, what their issues, right? I understand their issues analytically. I know I have a subject expertise, and I know what they need in terms of IT. The reason I personally left the banks, because computers are replacing people on Wall Street. So it's actually a huge benefit for you guys. For everyone here will be actually, you're taking jobs from the Wall Street bankers. So we'll help you to get there, right? So first of all, banks is a major user of IT, right? So this is just $200 billion and $170 billion for insurance industry. And Ukraine does a lot of that, and that's fine, gaming, but you can see how much bigger this pie is, right? It's just 6 or 7 times bigger, right? So my point is, start thinking big, right? So selling to their banks is a difficult, long process. But if you're there, you're set for life. They are customers for life. For example, some of the leaders like Luxoft has about 1,000 developers working for Deutsche Bank alone. So Deutsche Bank basically pays Luxoft probably in excess of $100 million a year, just for that client. Can you imagine that $100 million a year? So this is a major, mega, long-lasting project. And I mean, the other leaders actually have also good relationship. And Polish guys are also stepping up, but most of them target actually European banks, right? So I'll maybe say a few things about what's going on in American banks, right? Basically, their profitability is declining. It's declining structurally. Because first of all, interest rates are here very, very low. Basically, I have a mortgage, right? I live in New York, and the mortgage in New York is like probably 3%. You guys would love it about 3%, right? You need to transfer money abroad, you pay 5% or something, right? It's nothing, right? And interest rates are even negative in Germany. 5-year bonds are negative. And also governments, European governments, and essentially, especially US government is actually pushing banks really, really hard. Get out of the sort of profitable, juicy zones, don't trade, just focus on the basics, all the basics. So and when they do that service, right, their profitability goes down, right? So, and unfortunately, these guys, PayPal and other derivatives, Square, Snapchat, Facebook, Apple Pay, they come into the most juiciest, profitable franchises that banks have developed over time. We have a corporate bank account at Chase, for example, Chase JP Morgan, and they have it called Chase Payment Tech, but they are scared shitless of these guys at PayPal, right? And as a matter of fact, they have hired a whole bunch of tiny people from PayPal to help them sort of like compete in the new age, right? So they are scared, if you forgive my language, shitless because of their IT, right? You guys will eat their lunch. You will eat your lunch, their lunch, so get ready for that. And obviously crowdfunding platform essentially can provide loans to individuals. Essentially it's automation of sort of crowdsourcing that people do all along. And there is a lot of things happening, even further down the road, right? Investment automation and everything, right? So what really matters to you? How banks actually do outsourcing. The key thing is actually, for them, is reliability. I will emphasize it. Reliability in every possible way. You have to deliver on time. You have to be quality. You have to call. You have to follow up, right? Price matters, but it's not the most important thing. And we'll walk you through that with this. Of course, we talk about that Ukraine is not the flavor of the month, right? Obviously, right? And for many reasons, right? And but you can do better, right? So let's. But you can. Here I will talk about what you can do to stand out. I'll tell you one of the jokes, right? You know, like this. The guy prepares for the run, right? When he's a run racer, right? He puts his running shoes. Well, actually, let's get to 2 runners in Africa, right? And they see there is like a line approaching them, right? So one of them starts lacing up his shoes, and the second one looks at him saying, "Why are you lacing up your shoes? You cannot outrun your line." He looks at him. "I don't need to outrun the line. I need to outrun you." Do you understand? So you are not really competing. You're mostly competing with yourself, but even more so with the other software alternatives, right, that they have, right? So they have Philippines, they have, of course, India, they have China, they have other, Mexico, there's a bit of developments in Brazil. So you have to get better, because someone else will. So it's not like, oh, we may do get better, or we might not. No, you have to get better, and there's no other way. So lace up your shoes, because your goal is not to try and line, right? You have to beat up your competitor, right? In a good way. So I will talk about 4 things. 4 things. This is not a comprehensive list, but something like for you to start thinking about, right? And we were meeting a lot of, we met several we went through big offices yesterday, and we were talking to people, what is big, what is hot, right? And everybody does web development and PHP and the usual stuff, and C++. And we have several people working for us in Ukraine. We have in-house development as well. But I'm talking big data, distributed databases, unstructured data. Thank you, I appreciate that. I'll talk how actually you have to start selling by linking up better to your client. I think we were talking outside about the solutions. Essentially, you should not be selling your capabilities. It's not about you. It's about him or her, right? So you will be turning a table and talking his language, looking at his issues, right? You should not be even talking about your code, right? They know you can write your code, but that's not about that. And we'll talk about specifically what we can do in differential, vertical, and communication skills. So, I will very, very briefly glance over the big data, and actually what I think Wall Street gets wrong. So, usually people kind of talk about big data in 4 partially overlapping dimensions. They're talking about volume, variety, velocity, and veracity. So volume, of course they're big, right? And they are very unstructured, they're various, right? And they are moving fast. And they are very, actually that's unstructured, the veracity is unstructured, right? I know, veracity is, you have to be verified. So there's a lot of bad data, right? Bad data by definition. What usually people focus on is actually this piece, velocity. We think actually people don't interpret the volume correctly. And here's what I'm talking about. Because it really, really matters to you guys. Because you guys are not really only programmers. I think that when I think about Eastern European programs, I think about high-quality mathematicians who people think creatively, right? Strategically. And you use computers only as a tool, right? Essentially, you're selling the capabilities, right? So when Wall Street, for example, they focus on the daily, hourly trades, like what's going on the latest, right? That's what the obsession is, right? But you can use this to build a context, right? So it's, you really contextualize what's going on and how it could be false, positive, or negative. I'll give you a stupid example, right? I go to Canada to visit my friend who runs a business there, and I use my American Express. And every time as I drive there, and I go to Ottawa, I pay through the gas station and whatever, and then like it happens every year. My American Express gets canceled. Shit. And Canada is very close to the United States. Why do people on American Express don't realize, hey, I just buying coffee, and they're like, oh, can you please verify that it's not a fraudulent account buying $6 for coffee in Canada? It's stupid, right? It's stupid, right? They're doing mechanically something very simple by focusing on this velocity, right? But they don't recognize, hey, we saw this American Express somewhere in upstate New York, and he's crossed the border because they can trace it, right? They can see, this guy is fine, he's just American dude traveling to Canada, right? So they by focusing on what's going on these days, they forget, oh, and by the way, he was there in last September, and for the last September as well. He goes to Canada twice a year, no big deal. Why should we even bother with calls? So they don't have ability to use big data in the broader sense to build this context, right? That's where you can do help. I encourage you guys, basically, for every IT company, be it Ukraine, be it Russia, be it anywhere in Eastern Europe, spend your internal priorities studying big data, right? And there is obviously a formula for it's a whole ecosystem. Apache Hadoop is a major one, right? And these GPS and network use, this is actually one of the tool sets, very fast and very evolving. Zookeeper, PKI, I wouldn't worry with that stuff. It's pretty technical. And speaking of the line, right? Speaking of the lacing shoes, very few people in Ukraine still have good expertise in Hadoop. So you have to spend some time preparing for that. I know personally maybe only 4 companies which have a good expertise in Hadoop, which are based in Ukraine. So if you really want to be forward-looking, don't spend much time on PHP or C++. It's good, don't get me wrong, it's good, but you need to move forward, and this is a tool of the future. And of course, there is along the same lines, you can put other unstructured databases, and Neo4j, MongoDB, and that kind of stuff. And this is stuff that I mentioned, MongoDB and graph databases. Graph databases is a big deal. So guys, find a way to equip yourself with that tool set. You can sell yourself this ability for a good money, right? And major banks are already there, like so major banks, I work with 2 of them, JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, actually switching to distributed databases and unstructured analytics. Graphs are not charts. So those of you know what graphs are, this is actually you got to know what it is, right? And this speaks for your strength. It really speaks for your strength, right? We're in Lviv, wonderful city, and Lviv Politik is known for its colorful ways of mathematicians, right? So use that. It's your advantage. That's where you have to stand out. You have to a little bit switch to that focus, and you can sell yourself brilliantly to the West. Now we'll switch to the step number 2, adopting consultative approach to sell. Again, essentially you have to almost essentially swap tables, turn tables. You're not really sitting in front of a person who, when you're selling him, you're taking turn sides, and you start really looking at almost the same screen. You're talking to him like, so what are your problems about? What the issues are, right? And then you can program something else for him or her. It doesn't matter, right? Because the truth of the matter, you are not perceived as that unique, right? The line doesn't care if it's like Sergey or Ivan. He will eat you both. So you have to be differentiated by making better to him, right? You have to understand what he really needs, right? And again, in our experience, it really matters how you work with your team on a daily basis. That's the most important thing we think. It's really matters to them if you reply to email soon, if you reply on time, if you go out of your way to follow up, right? I'm still amazed when we're hiring people and I have about 1,000 people working for me across Ukraine. I send them an email and they don't come back. They don't reply. In America, it should be like, you got an email from your manager, your boss, your client. You reply within 2 seconds. You say, thank you, I'm on top of it, I'll follow up. Although the weekend is coming, I will follow up. You have to follow up, right? You distinguish yourself by service, by attitude, by solutions, right? Because that's what and it will be so refreshing for them to see that. So essentially, again, think his way. Try to think his way, right? Try to think what he needs, right? And I think the previous speaker, he was here, I think he also mentioned the word follow-up several times, right? So it's not like I'm really emphasizing, I think it's a very coherent theme through the conference, right? Follow-up. The truth of the matter, since we were talking about the banks, you have to speak their terminology, their language, their interest. So when you start developing an approach in the industry, you have to spend some expertise in selling to oil companies in Houston or in Facebook. Well, Facebook is easy, right? Because you guys use it, right? But you have to develop some expertise in the matter, right? Subject matter, right? We're not talking about the programming tools. You need to develop some of your front office people, sales people, marketing people, who will understand the issues, right? And I think somebody else also said that, but again, do not stop selling when the project starts. Selling is essentially an ongoing process, right? Essentially, marketing and selling it never stops, right? So it's complex and a long process. We're here talking about the major long-term lasting projects which last for a long, long time. And I'll mention here briefly services that our company, Turnfix, provides to partially help fix some of these gaps, right? And we'll leave some time for Q&A. So, again, I spent a lot of time on the Wall Street, and I have a network of experts, not only people to introduce who know the product areas, fixing credit, mortgages. Mortgages would be, I think, hypotheka in Ukraine or something.
Yep.
Equities, akции, something like that. Currencies and cross-functional areas. It's easy to go through that way initially. You go through trading, risk management, insurance underwriting. Insurance is big, it's pretty complex, and asset management. I personally know equities and fixed income pretty well, but within our network we can introduce you, and it's a good service, people just about any vertical. So this is actually one of the things that we're trying to develop. So we try to help you guys actually to cross the Atlantic, right? And this is actually where I think my colleague will stop in. But I will tell you actually a pretty cool thing. You guys are good, actually. You, speaking of the Eastern European-based outsourcers, right? This is a slide. This is a pricing per hour. So it ranges from, say, 0 to whatever, $150 per hour, which is pretty good, right? That's how programs sell themselves, on a lumped-up basis across the board. And this is complexity of the project. These are competitors broadly defined in India, or Indian-based, or historically Indian roots, right? This company is actually, they employ hundreds, if not 200, thousands of people, right? And these people actually, they sell themselves mostly at the low end, right? The strengths of the leading companies, there are some Ukrainian companies here as well, like leaders, right? These are global Eastern European leaders like Vyacheslav and EPAM, and Asseco. Asseco is a Polish company, great company. Global Logic and SoftServe, undisputed leaders, right? So these are phenomenal companies. And look, they sell themselves two, three times more than Indian counterparts. How is it possible? How is it possible that Indian industry, which was established many years ago, that Indians developed a lot of stuff, and English is one of the major languages in India, right? Why is it possible that Eastern European West are selling the Indian average? Because of the mathematical skills that you provide, technical expertise. So you see, these companies in Ukraine, in Russia, in Moldova, in Romania, in Poland, they sell themselves almost as good, as high level as these guys. I personally work for Accenture. I know their kitchen pretty well. And technically, the gap between the two is very little. Essentially, the gap is not technical between these two clusters, right? The technical as a gap is communication. So first of all, within that, you're already kind of there. So if you're selling at $25, $30, $50, by stepping up the complexity of the projects, and it takes time, you move up to that zone, and by building longer-term lasting solutions, and solutions means relationship with the client, you'll be able to move up that value, right? You're moving up. It takes time, but it's worth it, right? It's worth it, right? And you are narrowing the gap with these guys. And I'll give you an example. Like it was like literally 2 weeks ago on the major conference called Canadian Retailer, companies called Canadian Tire, described EPAM. EPAM is a fantastic company based out of Moscow, but they started about 20 years ago. And EPAM is, they call it, look at this, very creative company which has brought innovation, business problem solving with Canadian Tire, thereby differentiating. That's why they are like these pay more. So with EPAM, and EPAM actually has at least 3,000 people in Ukraine, right? Including I think Lviv. There is a big office in Lviv as well. So this is actually, that's why they're different. So the funny thing is actually this Slavic creativity is sort of like, oh, I want to do things my own way, right? It's really helps sometimes, right? Yeah, but you have to balance it. There is a bit of discipline, in German way, really, really tight on schedule and everything. So you have to balance it, right? So that's what they love. They love your creativity, but they don't want that разгильдяйство. So please cut this down, be on time, be professional, and that will be. And my colleague Tatiana will say one more thing that we notice across.
Yeah. Thank you, Konstantin. That was a pleasure to listen to you. So I will tell a little bit about the Turnfix services, and I will switch into Russian if you don't mind. Здравствуйте всем, меня зовут Татьяна. Расскажу немного о сервисах компании Turnfix. Что такое Turnfix? Turnfix – это интенсивное онлайн-обучение с профессиональными инструкторами, носителями английского языка, американского. Это специализированная программа по проработке самых проблемных фонем английского языка для славяноязычных студентов. Да, то есть здесь вот мы видим фонемы. Как пример, как скажет человек славяноязычный Big City. Да, то есть здесь задействованы две фонемы, такие как Big City. То есть мы хотим научить славяноязычных IT-программистов говорить правильно Big City. Да, так что наша программа заметно повышает ценность ваших работников в глазах ваших заказчиков. Спасибо большое.
So that's actually one of the things that we do. And we didn't come to it, essentially we have it was as a happenstance, right? So we hire a lot of programs, mathematicians. I even work with doctors, right? I have doctors and marketing people. I do a lot of things. But we realized you guys can fix a few things, right? I mentioned big data, right? You can be creative. You know, a lot of these things are just simple stuff, right? So yeah, we'll teach you kind of how to speak better English, right? We're not talking about wrong English. We'll teach you how to speak it properly, right? Because the connectivity, when they hear similar accent, you're going up to the Irish rate, right? The Irish make $70 to $100 an hour. That's the whole gap, right? So actually, when we're looking at that, I don't think we have a slide here, but essentially, in many Ukrainian communities, teaching English is perceived as we call it perk in the States, you guys call it plushka. And some people go to MBA class, we call it, in our world, it should be a major investment, right? And we actually see here what's actually, we need to speak proper English. It doesn't really mean you have to spend and read the book again on English, Webster from the Oxford University or something like that. We actually teach you live English, which is spoken in the United States by native professionals, and they know how to work with Ukrainian IT consultants, software developers. So this is actually a very good time to ask the questions. This is actually our context for you to take, and we will be glad to answer any questions if time allows.
У нас залишається буквально 4 хвилини, тобто, в принципі, досить комфортно можемо поставити кілька запитань, якщо є запитання. Будь ласка.
There's information, but what is the source about, like this graph was built about the prices and the, you know?
We looked at everything. We looked at our brokerage reports. We talked to the companies, and we talked to the management of these companies, and we actually look at the annual reports of these companies. So it's a pretty comprehensive and tested from several times.
Окей. Ще запитання? Якщо більше немає запитань, то тоді можемо продовжити розмову в кулуарах, якщо цікаво.
And if my colleagues here, if you please step by to trade business cards or something, or ask any questions that we will maybe shy.